The movie starts with a man named Frank walking down the street while he's talking to his wife on the phone. He tells his wife he bought an apartment for their anniversary, even though he actually bought it for his girlfriend.
I love you too.
After he hangs up, he scolds the realtor for telling his wife about the apartment. While he's on the phone, he gets hit by a bus without realizing it.
You are not gonna believe what almost just happened.
He comes back to where he was standing but finds out he's a ghost when he sees people passing through him. Frank realizes he's dead and now a ghost in the world. Later on, there's a dentist named Bertram. He doesn't like talking to his patients much. One day he goes to a hospital for a checkup. When he leaves the next day, he sees some nurses smoking. He tells one of them off for being unprofessional. Then a young nurse tries to talk to him and touch his jacket, which annoys him.
Are you speaking to me?
He tries to leave, but she keeps following him. He walks faster and almost runs into an old couple. They start following him too. Then another man joins them and asks Bertram for 2 minutes of his time. Bertram gets scared and tells him to move out of the way because a truck is coming. But the man doesn't listen, and the truck goes right through him. Bertram is shocked.
You can see me, huh?
The man asks why he can see them, and Bertram doesn't know what to say.
I don't feel well.
He runs into a park to get away from them all. In the park, he sees a police officer and goes to him for help. But he's disappointed because the officer turns out to be a ghost. He starts running again because more and more people are chasing him. He hides under a bridge until the crowd runs in another direction. Then he goes back to the hospital. At the hospital, he meets the surgeon who operated on him. He asks her if anything strange happened during the operation. She calls a male nurse and asks him to come downstairs. She tells Bertram to follow her into a storage room.
Jesus Christ. Sorry.
The nurse brings a file, and Bertram asks again if something went wrong during his operation.
Did anything unusual happen during my procedure?
The surgeon explains that every medical procedure is a little different for each person. Bertram asks what was different in his case. The surgeon tells him that he died for 7 minutes during the operation.
I died for 7 minutes.
A bit less.
Okay, let's all calm down. Just not over-dramatize the situation.
Why is he calming down?
Bertram is shocked and asks how it happened. The surgeon says it was because of the anesthesia they used. They advise him not to use that kind of anesthesia again. Bertram gets mad and demands to see the anesthesiologist, but the surgeon says they already fired him. Then he asks why they didn't tell him before, but the nurse says they did that night. Bertram says he can't remember anything and threatens to sue. The nurse says he can't because he already signed a paper saying he wouldn't sue. They show him his signature, but he still complains.
When did I sign that?
He leaves the hospital without getting anywhere with his complaints. He walks on the road, looking around carefully. Frank's ghost appears and tries to stop him, but Bertram walks right through him, sneezing afterward. Frank follows him and asks if he is the guy, but Bertram harshly says that he is not the one.
No, I'm not the guy.
Bertram quickly gets in a cab, ignoring that a woman was about to take that cab. He is relieved for a moment, but when he turns around, Frank is sitting right beside him on the seat. Frank says to him that he knows Bertram is busy, so he will just get to the point. Frank then tells Bertram that the woman who is about to get in the cab is his wife. He says that there is a very serious problem, and he needs Bertram's help to fix it. The cab driver asks Bertram where he wants to go, and having no choice, Bertram begrudgingly goes to a bar with Frank. In the bar, Frank advises Bertram to order a martini, which annoys him, and he yells at Frank. The waiter is confused when he sees Bertram talking to himself, so Frank quickly reminds him that he can't talk to the ghosts when there are other people around. After he finishes ordering his drink, Frank says that he knows Bertram needs to adjust to all this, and he can wait for him to collect himself. After a moment of silence, Bertram tells Frank that he died today for 7 minutes, and then the doctors brought him back. After listening to him, Frank tells him that New York is filled with ghosts, and they are noisy and frustrating like when they were alive. He says that the dead have a lot of unfinished business, which is why they are here. The problem is that they cannot talk to the living, so when they found out that Bertram can see them, they were all very excited, and Bertram starts to question himself about whether he is actually dead and if this is all a dream. Seeing his confusion, Frank tells him not to overthink it, saying that it is good he got another life, and he should have another drink to celebrate it.
Have a drink, have another one. God knows I would if I could.
Frank then asks him how he died, to which Bertram tells him that something went wrong with the anesthesia during surgery. Frank wants to ask more questions and says that if they are going to hang out together, they should get along. Bertram quickly says that they are not going to hang out together.
Well, if we're gonna be hanging out,
We're not going to be hanging out.
Their discussion is interrupted by the ghost of an old lady, Marjorie, who wants Bertram's help in giving her daughter a letter. Before Bertram could reply to her, Frank interrupts and says to Marjorie that he found the dentist first.
I found him first. Look what you did. You upset him.
So now he has to finish his business first. Bertram walks out of the bar and sits on a bench outside. Frank soon joins him, saying that they should start over and offering that they can go to his girlfriend's yoga studio, which is nearby. Bertram is confused by his statement and asks him if he was married, to which Frank replies that he wasn't perfect when he was alive. Bertram is annoyed by all this and says that Frank is not even real but just a bizarre aftereffect of some poorly administered anesthetic. After deciding to go back home, he starts walking, but Frank also follows him and says that he just needs a little help from Bertram. He says that this is a matter of life and death because his wife, who lives in the same building as Bertram, is getting married in a couple of months. He tells Bertram that the lawyer his wife is marrying is a really bad guy, so they need to stop the marriage. Bertram says that he shouldn't care about that because he was having an affair, and then goes home, leaving Frank there. At night, while Bertram is sleeping peacefully in his room, he is woken up by the coughing of multiple ghosts. When he comes to his senses, he is shocked to see his room filled with ghosts, causing him to run out of his room. Frank is standing outside of his room and confesses that he gave Bertram's address to everyone. Bertram ignores him and goes out of his apartment building, ignoring the ghosts that were in the elevator and in the lobby of the building. When he gets out, Frank is already there waiting for him, and says that there is a reason he is there. He says that the lawyer whom his wife Gwen is trying to marry wants to steal the money he left for her, and he can't let that happen. Bertram says that he doesn't care about Gwen, and that even if he saved her from the lawyer, there can be another man who will come along and not be good for her. Frank tries another approach and says that Bertram doesn't want to help him because he hates himself. He says that dentists have a very high suicide rate, and for him, it can be a good opportunity to connect with another human being. Bertram harshly replies that he doesn't care about anyone.
Hey, don't you understand? I don't give a shit. I like what I do.
And keeps walking, ignoring Frank. Frank says to Bertram that he will find him in a hotel easily, and if he wants his quiet life back, he will have to make a deal with him. Frank offers him that he will talk to the ghosts and they will leave him alone, but in return, Bertram will have to help him. Bertram finally agrees with his offer, so Frank leaves to talk to other ghosts. They both go to Gwen's lecture about a mummy they found in Egypt. As she is an Egyptologist while sitting in the lecture hall, Frank says that it can't be that hard to break a relationship, as he was used to messing things up all the time when he was alive. He suggests that they can just hire someone to seduce the lawyer Richard and then videotape it to show it to Gwen. Frank gives another suggestion, saying that they can send her an anonymous letter from Richard's family. Bertram is not listening to what Frank is saying, as he is more focused on why he never noticed Gwen if they live in the same building. After focusing on the lecture for a while, Bertram turns to Frank and says they should give Gwen a better option to date, so she could leave Richard. Frank quickly asks if they need to hire a male model, but Bertram says that they don't need someone extremely handsome. Bertram says that the person should be approachable, average-looking, and sensible person. Frank asks Bertram if he is talking about himself and then makes fun of him when he realizes it is true. Bertram is not happy with this, and goes to sit a few seats away from Frank. He is not alone for long as Frank follows him and says that it is not a big deal because a lot of great ideas sound completely ridiculous at first. Frank then continues that he thinks it will work if Bertram is just charming enough to give her a few second thoughts. He suggests a few ways Bertram can try to meet her, but Bertram says that he will just go to her after she finishes her lecture. They both agree on the suggestion, and after Gwen finishes the lecture, Bertram approaches her. He starts the conversation by apologizing to her for stealing her cap and not holding the elevator for her once in their apartment building. Gwen says that he should also apologize for the time when he complained about her cooking and was rude to her. Bertram says that he is a very private person, but Gwen argues that he is a little bit of an idiot.
What you are is a little bit of a jerk.
Bertram ignores her accusation and instead says that he enjoyed her lecture very much and jokes about the Egyptian mummy's dental condition. Gwen asks him,
Is there something else?
and walks away when he tries to compliment her shoes.
Shoes.
When Bertram comes back after meeting with Gwen, Frank says he scared her and asks him what his problem is with women. When they come back home, Frank keeps telling him little details about Gwen until Bertram falls asleep with cotton buds in his ear. The next morning, Frank continues his speech, and when Bertram meets with Gwen in the elevator, Frank tells him not to say anything to her because he is not ready yet.
Don't do it.
Bertram ignores his warning and makes some dental jokes in front of Gwen,
I've been thinking about your decaying jawbone.
despite Frank's fear that Bertram will repel her. The joke has the opposite effect as she invites him to examine the teeth of a pharaoh's mummy they found. Bertram agrees to help her after finding a free slot in his schedule on Thursday. Frank is very happy that Bertram is making some progress with Gwen, and in the coming days keeps telling him more details about Gwen. On Thursday, Bertram wears a new shirt and takes his time getting ready before meeting Gwen. After getting ready, Bertram goes to meet Gwen, and together they examine the pharaoh's mummy named Pepe. Bertram tells her that it is possible that this person died because of some bacterial infection, as he can see the signs in the decayed teeth. Gwen is impressed by his discovery and invites him to the opening of her museum. Bertram politely refuses to accept the invitation, saying that he doesn't like crowded places. Gwen says to him that he can let her know if he changes his mind, and together they continue to look at the Egyptian mummy. As Gwen and Bertram walk home together, Gwen wonders why Bertram moved from London. He says there were too many people there, and another reason he finds hard to explain. Gwen guesses if it's about a girl, and Bertram jokes about a girl named Sarah who died because of cannibalism, but then admits he's kidding. The real reason remains a mystery. Gwen shares she moved after her husband passed away a year ago. They stop at a bench where Gwen looks for her keys, mentioning her tooth hurts with cold food. Bertram begins to respond when a ghost appears behind him, asking him to kill someone. More ghosts show up and Bertram tries to act normal in front of Gwen while dealing with them.
It's now a good time. It's just the...
Because you look a little... Oh, jeez.
Oh, no, don't. Careful.
Huh?
Oh,
Suddenly, Gwen's fiancé Richard arrives. She tells Richard how Bertram helped her, and Richard, needing a dentist, invites Bertram to dinner the next day.
Why don't you join us for dinner tomorrow night, Doctor? She's really cute.
Bertram agrees and joins them for dinner, where Frank also joins in. Bertram and Richard are friends, but Frank doesn't like Richard. Frank tells Bertram to hurt Richard. Bertram doesn't want to and thinks Richard is okay. Bertram and Gwen have fun together while Richard is busy. Richard leaves suddenly because of work. Bertram and Gwen take Gwen's dog Leo for a walk and then go for drinks. Bertram accidentally orders the drink that reminds Gwen of her dead husband Frank. Gwen asks how Bertram knows about Frank, and he makes up an excuse. Gwen talks about Frank and Bertram suggests listing his bad qualities to feel better. Frank overhears and is shocked by what Gwen says. Gwen reveals that Frank cheated on her before he died. Bertram apologizes for Gwen's pain. They share stories about their past relationships. Gwen doesn't want to move because of Richard. They part ways and Bertram goes home. Bertram confronts Frank about why he lied, and Frank says that it's because Bertram is a heartless person. Gwen doesn't deserve him because she already dealt with one of them. Bertram is left alone in the park and is sitting on the bench when the ghost of Marjorie and another man join him. They tell him about their unfinished business, but he refuses to help them. In the coming days, Bertram falls into depression and decides to confide in his Indian colleague, Dr. Pashar. After listening to his story, Pashar shows him a quote that says that his life would be a lot better if he started helping others. Bertram decides to follow the advice and meets the ghosts, helping everyone with their unfinished business. After a lot of ghosts finally leave the earth after their business is complete, Bertram goes to meet Gwen on the day of the exhibition. He says that Egyptian people used to bury their people with a lot of things to make sure they are okay before they let them go. He says that Frank is still haunting her because she is not letting him go, but Gwen doesn't believe anything he is saying. Bertram tries to convince her, but she refuses to listen to him and walks out, saying she needs to pack for her trip. He also follows her while arguing with Frank, saying that he should say something now. Gwen sees him talking to himself and asks if he is talking to Frank. Bertram says that he is actually talking to Frank, and tells her that her dead husband is saying sorry to her, but she still doesn't believe him and walks out of the building. Bertram quickly follows her and tells her that he couldn't tell her the right dream because Frank deliberately told him the wrong one. While talking to her, he doesn't notice that he is standing in the road and gets hit by a passing truck. He dies from the hit, becomes a ghost, and watches with Frank as a crowd forms around his body and Gwen cries for him. They see Richard coming there and quickly perform CPR on Bertram. After seeing Gwen cry for Bertram, Frank realizes that she loves him, so he tells Bertram something. saying it will help him later, and finally leaves the Earth. Bertram wakes up in the hospital bed sometime later and returns to his clinic after fully recovering. He is working in his clinic one day when Gwen comes there and tells him that she came here to get checked by Dr. Pashar but wanted to check on Bertram. She is about to walk away when Bertram stops her and tells her that Frank's real nightmare was getting lost in a jungle and not being able to find his way back home. As Frank told him this about leaving the Earth, Gwen says that this is the true dream, and Bertram assures her that Frank has finally found his way home. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. See you on the next video.